Oh yeah, it's that time. It's 3 minutes after 8 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Heartbeat. And of course, to He Says, She Says. I am so excited this evening, guys. And you know why? Because today we're going to be talking about a topic that's going to be relevant to the entire family, the entire household. We're talking about something that's going to impact you, your children, probably your friends, your family, everything. It's divorce. We're going to be talking about divorce this evening and how to move on after a divorce. Well, the impact on the family and how to move on. And of course, what makes me even more excited, my friends, is the fact that yes, Mr. Micheal Stewart is in studio. Good evening, Michael. How are you?
Live and alive.
You know how happy I am when you're live. You know that.
I tell you. Well,
everybody's happy. Everybody's happy when you're live. Michael, I just want to check and make sure we have the right microphone. Go ahead, just chat
yes,
there.
I think we are.
There we go. Yes. Yeah. So, Michael, thank you very much for embracing the storms and everything else.
Because you know we attempted this last week and then it didn't work out. But we're happy to be here now.
Thank God, and especially for a topic like this one that's so very important. So we're talking about divorce, guys, and the impact on our families. And you know something, Michael? There's so many things that divorce, that it entails.
Yes.
You know, when it comes to divorce, it really impacts our children. You know, you have things like the custody of the children, you have financial support of the children, you have visitation rights and all these things to work out. The division of assets to work out. You have all the money, as the guys say, and then you have division of your personal property and a whole lot of things. It really is a heartache.
And the shoveling up of your life, your emotion, your heart.
And then definitely not the least. The heartbreak, and as I was saying this morning, heartbreak shouldn't be called heartbreak because it's just not your heart that's broken. Every piece of you feels like it's broken. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that this evening. So good evening, everyone. Welcome again. Let me remind you that you are a part of this program and it's all interactive. So 222-1035, that's our phone line this evening, and it's all yours. No Michael on the other line. So the phone lines are all yours, callers, and please be a part of it. So Mikey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about let's first of all, there's a big difference between a separation and a divorce.
And a divorce, that's right. Both of them painful. One of them gives an idea of permanence. A separation tells you that chances are you're going to come back, but it gives the impression that once you have been divorced, that is it. Notwithstanding that there are some people who have been divorced and still marry back to each other, and sometimes more than once.
Yeah.
So, but you know, it is so pervasive that almost everyone out there in some way or the other would have been touched by the subject of divorce, because the statistics says that 1 in 2 relationships.
1 in 2?
1 in 2 end in divorce.
Where? Globally, or that's
generally? Generally, it is very high. And especially because that you only could have been divorced for a narrow set of reasons. Now you can divorce for almost any reason. And also you have divorce where you don't even need the cooperation of the person. So if you have been separated for a certain period of time, you feel that you've been abandoned, comes under the whole idea of irretrievable breakdown, you can really apply for a divorce and get it. In fact, in some cases, when you leave the country, there are people who have left here and have been divorced, and the spouse here not aware that they are divorced.
Wow.
So it is really common for somebody to just end up in a divorce situation, and that has some serious impact on relationships and on the division of assets, your emotional stability. I was speaking with someone yesterday, I think it was, and she was saying that her 71-year-old mother is in a nursing home, and she was explaining that her mother and her father separated since she was a little girl. She must have been about 6-7 years old. And the mother is now 71. And she said the mother never recovered from that divorce that took place, and has put her mother in a downward emotional spiral ever since. Now you're talking about 30 years of not recovering from a divorce. That is how deep,
how traumatic it could be, a divorce on a child.
Sometimes you don't recognize the impact of it till years later, how it has impacted you. Because we live in a state of denial during the time that we are going through it. We are telling ourselves, I could handle this, and so on. And really, many times we are not handling it. There are people who have had nervous breakdown because of the impact of the divorce that would have taken place in their lives.
Yeah. And so, and the unfortunate thing is, well, last week, we spoke about, couples in crisis and how to, and trying to help people to heal their relationships. But unfortunately, as you're saying, Michael, all is not golden and well all the time,
Yeah.
So, and then that very alarming statistic of 1 in 2 is, well, to me, that's kind of like a shock. I didn't expect it to be that, I mean, so awesome. I mean, no, awesome is the wrong word. Alarming, frightening, shocking, But let's talk about...
Well, if you just check the relationships around you, check the relationships around me, I can think of so many people around me who have been divorced at least once.
And you're very right, because if we want to be truthful and honest with ourselves, listeners, a lot of people who are probably in their 40s and 50s right now, a lot of their friends right now who, whose weddings we probably went to and had a great time enjoying the wedding, and we enjoy their children coming up and all that. You're very right. Lots of my friends are single again.
We have brothers and sisters who are divorced.
Yeah.
And so we know of some of the exes that used to be our in-laws, no longer our in-laws. We have new in-laws. So, I mean, it is really, really problematic.
Yeah. So we want to talk about moving on after this divorce, because as we say, it's very traumatic, it's hard, it's really relenting and all of that. But before we go to the actual 2 people involved, because we're adults, I want us to touch on the children for a bit, because I think those are the people who more than likely are the ones who really are terribly affected, because they are that children, and they probably will not understand as well as the adults will understand. So can we go through the feelings and try to understand what's going through the minds of our children at that time? Because more than likely, for a couple of years or months or whatever, they probably would have seen mommy and daddy quarreling and arguing a lot, and so they know something is not right. Yeah,
the relationship would have been in crisis.
But still, regardless, this is the.
But the child never, in most cases, in the mind of that small child, the child never envisioned the divorce, the separation. It's just another quarrel.
Yeah.
But in the minds of the adults, it's heading towards the divorce. So they know it, and they brace themselves for it. So even though it is traumatic for the couple, it is even more traumatic for the child when the child recognizes, so why isn't daddy home? Why isn't he coming back? Why am I living with my grandparents? And what is going on here? Why is it that every time that he comes, he goes soon after? So they go through a lot of trauma.
Yeah, boy.
And what they attempt to do, innocent as they are, they sometimes try to bring them back together. Yeah. Because it is such a hurtful thing for them, because they cannot associate, if I love mommy and I love daddy, and mommy loves me and daddy loves me, how come mommy and daddy don't love each other?
Yeah.
You see? And that does not make sense. It does not resonate in the mind of a child. So the child now goes into confusion. Emotionally, the child goes through that sort of trauma, and in their schoolwork, it begins to show up. That they are no longer the A student, no longer the B student. They are doing really poorly.
They're totally unfocused.
They cannot concentrate because they have so much on their minds, on their little innocent minds. They become disruptive in class because they are irritable. They almost hate sometimes people around them. They hate the father for leaving. They blame themselves because they say the reason why daddy left is because of the way how I was behaving. Yeah. So whenever the child misbehaves, the child associates that as being the reason of the frustration of the parents, because the child talked to me and I've been a bad boy, I've been a bad girl, and if I wasn't a bad girl, I wasn't a bad boy, mommy and daddy would have been together. So they live in this state of blame, and they go through that, holding that in their lives and coming through and growing up in their years, saying that if I didn't do that, my parents would have been together. Yeah. So that emotional disconnect, that emotional sadness, emotional frustration, they go through, and it begins to adjust their personality. So instead of being the open, outspoken child, confident child, the child could become now
Head
withdrawn.
is always down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Withdrawn and sullen and so on, and take on, don't want to rock anybody's world, don't want to vex anybody because he doesn't know who else is going to fall out because of him or her. So that becomes a burden for the child to bear. An unnecessary burden, I might add, that they should not have been bearing as little children. It behooves us, therefore, as parents, to consider twice before we divorce whether at this time we are not doing more harm than good. Because we seem to think that it is my happiness that is important, and not considering the child's life and how it is going to impact on them for a very long time. Because I've heard people say, listen, I don't want to live in unhappiness. And so the child will get over it. But you can hardly deal with it. What is the child supposed to do?
Yeah, and I have heard people say that as well. I've heard people say that, you know, children are resilient and that's all right, they will get over it. And as a matter of fact, 6 or 1 half a dozen, as we say here in TNT, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you stay, you're going to affect the child. If you don't stay, you will affect the child. So some people decide the best thing.
You know, a father who was planning on leaving said, the child is just 4 years, the child is going to go over it. And I've seen people leave and their children are not affected by it and so on. And he left. And it was when the son called him and said, Daddy, why aren't you coming home? When the child was crying on the phone, that he himself broke down. He did not believe that it would have impacted him so much. He ended up going back home. You see, a child of 4 years will notice that you are not home. Because the child is emotionally connected to both of you and will notice that you are not home. So you've got to consider the interests of the child as a priority in this relationship and this situation. Should I leave at this time, and am I prepared to take the consequences of traumatizing the child at such an early age or at this stage of the child's life? Because it may not be a 4-year-old child. It may be a child who's heading for CXC.
Yeah, going through a period of examination.
That's right. The child is going through exams. The child is going through a stage in their life that is going to now put them into a tailspin also. So, so many stages along the child's life that it is not appropriate. This is why probably you should really think twice before even getting into a relationship to make sure you're in the right relationship to stay as long as possible.
Yeah, and that's so true. You know, people don't even think about that kind of foresight, you know, longevity. You know, I mean, like you get into a relationship, you're going to be having children. All these things you have to put into place before you get into a serious relationship, before you get married. Yeah. But then again, remember, we always say people just thinking about the wedding reception, you know.
Oh, yes,
right?
300 people. Imagine that everybody enjoyed themselves. The dress was gorgeous and all of that. And so, but then that doesn't make a marriage.
No, definitely not. So let me remind you guys that our number is 222-1035. That's 222-1035. And we're talking about divorce and the impact on the family. I'm going to open the phone lines now. So that if you have any questions at all or you have a contribution, you can